Hello everyone and welcome to the Index of Avalon. In this series I will be focusing on one aspect of the game, Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon, thoroughly explaining the basic rules, the nitty-gritty, and the rare circumstances. We'll be looking over all 5 character boards and the tiles and their tiles today, so there will be no spoilers. With that said, today we'll be discussing character actions and their weaknesses and their starting values. In front of us we have the 5 characters we can choose from in the core box. On all five of these character tiles, there is a section that describes their character's personal action and their personal weakness that is unique to them. They are located in these boxes on the left side of all of the character boards. Now, these character actions can be activated on your turn as long as you're not in the middle of an exploration or an encounter. They can be activated multiple times as long as you have the energy. Keep in mind the cost of these character actions will vary depending on the character you chose. If you're in a location with another player and you want to activate your personal action, the other player can help you with the cost, though unlike travel, exploration, and other actions, the other player cannot pay for your personal character action in full. The character who is activating the character action needs to pay at least 1. So, for example, if we take a look at Beor's character action, it says here that he can craft by spending 4 energy, drawing 3 random craftable items, and choosing 1. Note that you can only use this ability if you're in a settlement, which you can tell by if let's see if well this is an unfriendly one, but if this symbol is on the location card that your character's on, you can activate Beor's ability. Okay? If Beor was in a location with another player, the other player can contribute up to 3 energy, and the player controlling Beor would need to pay at least 1 energy. Okay? With that out of the way, let's go through the characters, all of their character actions, their weaknesses, and their general stats. Okay? Since we already went through Beor's character action, so let's do just a quick demonstration of his action real quick, just so everyone knows. So it states that draw 3 random craftable items and pick 1. So you will then take your item deck here. You will flip over cards until you find 3 craftable items. So for example, we just pulled one here. This is the battered shield, and a craftable item is denoted by this C in the bottom left corner of the item. So we have 1. Let's keep going until we find a second one. There is our second, and there is our third. Okay, so once we draw those 3, we then get to pick one of these to keep, and the other 2 go back in the item deck, and then we would shuffle the item deck as well. Okay. So I'm going to put those back over there. Okay, so as we can see here, let's see. Okay, so since we already went through Beor's character action, let's start with him. Along with his ability to craft, his weakness, Festering Wound, causes him to lose 1 HP every time he becomes exhausted. This means that whenever his energy goes from, let's see. So for example, we're gonna do a quick demonstration here. So whenever his energy goes from 2 energy down to 1 energy and enters one of these red slotted energy slots, he will lose 1 HP. Now keep in mind that when you go from 1 energy down to 0 energy, you won't lose 1 HP because you were already exhausted, and it states that you lose 1 health every time you become exhausted. So going from 1 to 0 doesn't make you exhausted again, it just makes you, well, more exhausted. Okay? So we're going to do a quick overview of each character's stats and the resources real quick as well. This information can be found on the back of each of your character tiles. As we can see here, Beor starts off with 3 food and 1 wealth. His attributes start off with 2 aggression, 1 courage, and 1 practicality. This shows us that he will be very proficient in combat, as he can connect all 3 attributes in combat. His diplomacy side is not very good at all, as he only has 1 point in caution, and he won't be able to connect as many diplomacy cards when he's in a diplomatic encounter. So the short and sweet is basically you fight stuff, you don't really talk. So I'm just going to fill up these slots just so you guys have a good visual as to what his stats look like. He gets 1 in practicality. He doesn't get anything in sympathy in there. And he starts with 3 food, 1 wealth. Okay. Now, in terms of his energy, let's put this guy back here real quick. In terms of his energy, HP, and terror track, his energy starts at 6, which is the average across all the character boards. I believe 4 out of the 5 of them start with 6 energy. His health though is above average for sure. He has 9 HP, 8 is the average, and one other character has 7. So if you want to play someone who's a little more tanky, definitely pick this guy. Also, his terror track is also pretty average. All of them will start at 0, but the first number of when you go insane is 5, which is average amongst all the characters minus 1, and we'll get to that when we get there. So, if you guys want to choose Beor as your starting character, this is what his tray will look like when you start Chapter 1. Great. So, let's take this apart, and we're going to move on to our next character, which is Arev, I believe, is how you pronounce his name. I'm sure someone will correct me on the pronunciation, for sure. Okay, so this is Arev, and we can see that his character ability here is called Foraging. You can spend 2 energy and gain 1 food. Note that you can only use this ability when you are outside of a settlement. So if the location you're at does not contain this symbol, also of note, this is a unfriendly settlement. This can also be green, I believe. Let me double check that real quick. Don't want to spread false information. Yes. This symbol can also be green, which signifies that it is just a settlement in general. So as long as that symbol is not there, Arev can use his ability. Looking down at his weakness, it is titled Cursed. It says that activating menhirs costs 1 more magic. So if part of the cost to activate a menhir was 1 magic, it would now cost 2. When you activate a menhir and you're playing with other people, this magic tax, this 1 magic tax that Arev has only applies to Arev. It does not scale with the amount of players. If the cost of activating a menhir does not need any magic at all, it's just not even listed there, you still need to pay 1 magic if you're playing Arev. Okay, now let's look at the back of the character tile. We see here that he starts off with 2 food, 1 wealth, and 1 magic, a nice spread that should help you in many scenarios and probably help you out in the early game. His starting attributes are nice and spread out, with 1 point in aggression, courage, practicality, empathy, and caution, and 0 in spirituality. Now, with spirituality being the only one with no starting stats, Arev should be very slightly better at combat than diplomacy. That being said, I see him as a really good all-rounder. If one of the first things you do with your experience points is level up his spirituality, you'll be pretty much set for any encounter, diplomatic or combat. Okay? Now, in terms of his personal stat line, his energy is pretty average at 6. His HP, his HP is also pretty average because it's at 8. And his terror does start at 0, but notice that his actually goes up. The red section is actually at 6 instead of 5, like most other characters. So he's the character that can withstand a lot of traumatic experiences before he goes insane. He won't go insane as fast as other ones. All right. So let's set up his character board real quick. So if you choose Arev as your first character and you want to start the game, let's see. Let me double check what his thing was. It was 2, 1, and 1. So if you choose him as your first character, this is what your character board will look like at the beginning of Chapter 1. Okay. So let's clean this up, and we're going to move on to the next character. Okay, our next character is Aili. This was the first character I played, and I have a ton of fun with her combat and diplomacy encounter. She's a really, really fun character, personally, I think. So we see that her character ability is called Healing Herbs. It allows her to spend 2 energy, and she can restore 1 HP to herself or to another character in the same location. Keep note that you can only use this outside of settlements. That's going to be just saying, if you forget this, it's totally understandable. It is small print, and it's kind of just tacked on that at the end, so don't feel too bad if you forget it. Now, if we look down at her weakness, it is called traumatized. It states that she can't reduce her terror when resting in location without an active menhir. Resting is the step you take at the start of the end day phase. If you consume food, you'll heal 1 HP, but depending on if there is an active menhir or not, will determine if you can reduce your terror down as well. Note that if you're going to lose terror in ways other than resting, this weakness does not apply to this. For example, if an event in the exploration journal says reduce your terror by 1, you can apply this to Aili, since you are not technically resting, you just lose it. Okay? So, looking at the back of her character tile, we see that she starts with 3 food and 1 reputation. While reputation doesn't heal you or allow you to buy things, it does open up a lot more choices in the exploration journal. You can just explore a lot more. So that's one reason why I like her. I feel like it just kind of unlocks more in the exploration journal for you. Her starting attributes are quite decent, with 0 in aggression, 1 in courage, and 1 in practicality, meaning she isn't going to beat down enemies like Beor is going to, but she can hold her own. Her diplomatic half is pretty strong, with 2 empathy and 1 in caution and 0 in spirituality. Now, if you start the game and you get a point in spirituality as soon as possible, you're going to be able to slam any diplomatic encounter that comes your way. Okay. In terms of her personal stats, she has actually 1 more energy than everyone else, and I kind of view that as extremely strong. I think your energy is probably one of the most important stats in the game. It allows you to do so much more, and having that 1 extra energy adds up a lot. Her health is actually 1 less than the average. It is 7 instead of 8, and her terror track is the average as well. Okay, so so we're gonna get Aili all set up here real quick. If you guys decide to pick her as your first character, she has 3 food, 1 reputation, no aggression, but she has courage and practicality, 2 empathy, and 1 caution. So, if you decide to choose Aili as your starting character, this is what her board would look like. Okay, let's get this all cleaned up, and we're going to move on to our last character, which is Maggot. Alright, so his character ability is called Meditation. This allows you to spend 2 energy to gain 1 magic. Of note, it states up to 4 magic, meaning that if you have 4 plus magic already, you won't be able to activate his character ability. Looking down at his weakness, it is called Recovering Addict. It states that when dreaming, toss a dial, and if you get a skull, here, let me just show you real quick. So if you flip a coin, flip, and it lands on a skull, you will then read the nightmare instead of a dream if you are in a location that has the dream icon, which looks like this. Personally, that weakness actually freaks me out quite a bit because a lot of dreams contain a lot of good information in terms of where to go, what to do. You can gain certain statuses from having certain dreams, so this one kind of scares me quite a lot, to be honest. So, if we take a look at the back of his character tile, we see that he starts out with 2 food and 2 magic, which I think is going to help him be a little more flexible. Magic can be used in a lot of different situations, and I think this is a pretty decent starting status. If we look over at his attributes, he gets 1 in aggression, 1 courage, 0 in practicality, 0 in empathy, 1 caution, and 2 spirituality. So I feel like this is just pretty average. His combat's going to be slightly weak, but his diplomatic counters will be pretty strong. And I feel like you can choose either, if you want to increase your practicality, that'll really help you out in combat, or you can put 1 point in empathy to help you out with your diplomatic encounters. Okay, now if we look at his personal stats, he's pretty average across the board. His energy is at 6, like most others. His HP is at 8 like most others. And while his terror track is kind of the same, it goes from 0 to 6, it's actually shifted down by 1. If we compare, let's say, Eili's terror track, if you look across the board, it goes 1 0 0, but on Maggot's it's down at the very bottom, 0 0 0. What that means is that for your terror to get above your HP, or for you to get above your for your terror to get above your HP, that'll make you panic in combat and other bad things will happen. Since his terror track is shifted down by 1, that means he's not going to be panicking as much, and he's not going to be going insane as often. So I really like that. As I was looking through it, it's just a very subtle shift, and I think it actually changes a good amount. So all right, great. Why don't we set him up real quick? Let's see. Let me see if I can remember how it is. Okay, so it's 1 aggression, courage, caution, 2 spirituality, 2 and 2. All right, so if you choose Maggot as your starting character, this is what his character board is going to look like at the beginning of Chapter 1. Okay, so why don't we clean this up? And then we get to look at our final character. The last character, I believe her name is pronounced like Neve. For some reason, I feel like it should be Niema, but smarter people told me that it is Neve. So she works a tad different in that she doesn't actually have a tray to her own. When you set her up, you will choose another character tray and swap it out with them. So for example, you can take Maggot's tray, remove his character tile, and replace it with Neve. And you can do that with any of the other 4 characters. Well, technically, the tray is actually a whole separate thing from the character. This character tray is brown. There's a green one, a blue one, and a gray one, and Neve can fit into any of those. There's 2 things that is going to affect when you choose a certain color tray to pick. One, it is going to affect her personal stats. She will adopt whatever stats her character tile is in, and it's connected to the tray. She will adopt these stats. The other thing, it will also affect what diplomatic and combat cards you can use. If she is in the brown tray, for example, she will be using the brown starter deck, and also all the brown advanced combat and diplomacy cards. Okay. Now, if we look at Neve's character ability, it's called Scouting. It allows her to spend 2 energy and take the top card of any encounter deck, and you can either leave it on top or on the bottom. This is extremely useful to use before you enter a location that has a lightning event that usually will make you draw an encounter card, and it's just good to do this it can help you avoid guardians as well. Now, her weakness is pretty rough in my opinion. It is called Infamy. It states that whenever she or her party enters a settlement, each of those characters loses 1 reputation. Of note, if you start your turn in a settlement, you don't lose 1 reputation, only when you enter it. If you are playing a party, it's probably best to send Neve into the settlement first, and then follow up with the rest of the characters. Now, if we flip her tile over, we see that she starts with only 1 food and 1 wealth, which is pretty dang rough to start out with that. That means you need to gather food almost immediately. Though it's made up for the fact that she has actually 1 point in every single attribute. This makes her extremely flexible. It makes her very strong in the early game in combat and diplomacy because she can connect any of the attributes while she takes care of an encounter. So it's very, very impressive. And like I said, her starting stats are going to be determined by which character tray that you place her in. So just for an example, we're going to place her into the brown tray, which is originally Maggot's tray. And her starting stats are going to be the 0 terror, this 8 health, and this 6 energy. She also starts with 1 food and 1... Wait, is it magic or is it wealth? It is wealth. Wealth, and then like so. So there you go. If you choose to play as Neve, this is what your starting tray will look like if you choose the brown starter tray. I'm not going to go through the other threes, but this is just the general idea. This is how her character works, okay? Alright, great. Now, with that said, thank you for joining me on another episode of the Index of Avalon. I hope this video helped you understand everything you need to know about character actions, their starting stats, and of all the characters in the core box. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment below the video, and I will respond to them promptly. Happy adventuring, and I hope you have a great day in Avalon.